Good day! Welcome to another 3ds Max tutorial. Today we are going to be working with splines. In case you're wondering what splines are, these are two-dimensional elements that can be converted to three-dimensional elements, but they work as a real good, simple basis for the start of any design or modeling that you want to do. So we're going to look into doing that and using them to create objects. Today we're going to focus particularly on one spline shape to create an object. So here we have the multi-screen view, and many of you I know like using this view because you can see all sides at once. I personally prefer to see a large view of my grid, so I'm going to go down here to the bottom right corner and click on Maximize Viewport Toggle, and that will give me the full screen view. And I could toggle back and forth, so if I wanted to go back to this view I could, but I'm going to go to the full screen view. Now, you'll remember we've been using extended primitives and standard primitives, which you find when you go to the right side on the circle button that says geometry and the drop down menu. So we were using those in the past few classes. And now we're going to move over to the splines, which if you go one more icon over to this circle with the square which says shapes, click on that and this gives you a list of splines. Now splines, like I said, they're one-dimensional. Some of you use the line one already, but the line one is just a basic line between 2 points. I can click once and then let go and create a curved line. Or I can click it again and create a straight line or have it cut off at that point and continue adding points. And when I don't want to add any more points, I can right mouse click and it's like cutting the string. I'm going to undo that. You also have a circle. But if you remember, like when you made the cylinder in the standard primitives, after I would create the circle, I would let go of the left mouse button, raise my cursor, and you would see the cylinder rise. This doesn't happen with this circle. It just stays flat. That's because it's two-dimensional. So I'm going to undo that. You have all kinds of other shapes you could build. You have the arc, you have the n-gon, which creates kind of a cool shape. We're going to skip text for now. We'll be doing that later. There's an egg. Hey, create multiple eggs if you want. And so today we're going to focus on creating this object, this mattress with springs poking out. It's an old mattress. So what we're going to do is find which object works best to be those springs. Because think about that mattress. What object do you think you could use for that mattress? We'll come back to that, but be thinking about that. So what object would work best for being those springs? Well, we know the star wouldn't, a donut wouldn't work. If you come down here to the helix, you'll notice it creates this base. It looks like a circle. But then when I let go, it moves upwards in a three-dimensional fashion. And then when I click again, it lets go. But then I could change the radius of it. And I'm just going to cut it right there because I can manipulate this using the modifier panel. And those of you who remember using the extended primitives and primitives, you'll remember doing this. But this particular shape, the helix, is able to be manipulated into a spring. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So what you would do is you would come over to the modify panel here. So you want to go to the right, you have the create button, the plus one. Then you go to this one, looks kind of like a rainbow in a square. It has this curve inside a square. Click the modify button. And here you have the helix. Now with the helix, if you have these different parameters here, if you adjust the radius one at the top, you'll notice that determines how wide the radius at the bottom of the helix will be. Then if I adjust the radius on the top, that determines how large the radius will be on the top. I can, of course, adjust the height, so how tall I want that helix to be. I can adjust the turns. And now, as you see, yeah, it's looking a little like a spring there, isn't it? See, when I add the turns, you get kind of a spring look. And then the bias determines how the distribution of the spring will be, or the helix turns. So for example, if I put it on the plus side, you'll notice the winding of the helix takes place at the top. If I go to the negative side, it all takes place at the bottom. But if I put it at 0, just manually enter 0, it's evenly distributed. Then we can determine how we want this to be twisted. Do we want it to go clockwise, CW, which is already checked, or do we want it to go counterclockwise, which you could check CW, and now you'll see the spring or the helix now twist the other way. So we want to turn this into a spring. So how are we going to do that? Well, it already has a spring look, but when we look at our image of the mattress and the springs poking out, you'll notice the springs are all evenly proportioned from the bottom to the top. So let's create the radius the same size. And you can do that manually just by typing in a number. I'm going to use 5. Let's just close that. But now you'll notice it's heavier on the top. And so now I'm going to change the other spring number, and now you'll see that it's evenly distributed. So now we have an even spring. And again, we can adjust the height. So I'm going to make it a little more of a coil, bring it down a little more. The turns are good, but I want to make the turns into an even 5. So I'm going to do that. So that looks pretty good. But right now, it's really flat because it's two-dimensional. It's just like a little sketch. We want that to be thicker. So how are we going to do that? Well, one way we can do that is we can click on this rendering tab. Open that rendering tab, and here you will see, you actually need to scroll up where it says rendering. See, it says enable in renderer, and enable in viewport. You want to click both of those. Looky there. We have a three-dimensional object. Now that's pretty fat to be a spring. So what we can do is we can bring down the thickness. So we're going to go down here, scroll down from where it says rendering, and we're going to scroll down to radial, and we're going to adjust the thickness. I'm going to bring that down to, roughly 0.5. In fact, I'll just type in 0.5. There we go. See, now that looks more like a spring. But springs usually aren't green, so I'm going to turn that to black. So we can go up here to the color next to helix on the right. Change that to black, hit OK, and there you go. There we have a spring. So let's set this spring aside because we need a mattress. And we could create multiple springs now, but that's going to put a lot more work on ourselves before we have the mattress. So let's go create a mattress. Now think about when you are creating objects using primitives and extended primitives. Go over to geometry. What shape would work best for a mattress? Think about that a moment. Would not the chamfer box? So we're going to create our chamfer box. Let's make it about the size of a mattress so we have less work to do in modifying. So if you remember, a chamfer box creates a box with rounded edges. So I'm going to create this in the shape of a mattress. The closer I can get it now, the less work I have to do in modification. Now I'm going to go over to modify because I personally think it needs to be a little taller. So I'm going to increase the height of it. To me, that's about mattress size. So now we have our spring here. We're going to add this to the mattress. But that's a giant spring, isn't it, compared to that mattress? So that's not quite the size we want. And let's go to the multiple view. That way we can see exactly where we're placing our spring. There we go. Because remember, we're working in a three-dimensional environment, so sometimes it can look like you're placing something right on the object, but you're actually further away from it. So there we go. So we've got the first spring in the right spot, but the problem is it's so big. So I want to shrink this down. So let's go to Modify, and then let's reduce the height. So we're going to scroll down to Parameters, and we're going to bring down the height. Now let's go to about 12. And let's adjust the radius. Let's bring that down to maybe 4. Looks a little better. More proportional with the size of that mattress. So now we want to copy this. Make it easy on ourselves. Do you remember how to copy? We did this several times. The easiest way to do it is pick the direction you're going to be moving the copy. I want my next spring to be right here. So the best way to do that is by grabbing this green arrow. I'm going to hold down the Shift button, hold down the left mouse button, and there's my copy. And I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to do this again with this spring. Hold down the right, left. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, the left mouse button, and I'm going to use the red directional button to move it down. Say OK. Now I'm going to hold down Shift key, make a copy, let go of the mouse. OK. I'm just going to do this 2 more times. And there we go. But there's only one thing, is that mattress is green. That's kind of a weird color for a mattress. So let's make it actually look more mattress-like. Kind of a gray would be more mattress, a grayish white. So I'm going to go with that because that to me looks like a mattress. So there we go. We have our mattress with springs poking out. So now what I want you to do is go into Google Classroom, and you will see in there 2 objects that use helixes in their design combined with other objects you've used in extended primitives and standard primitives. So go take a look at those objects, see what they are. Here's what they look like. You'll find these pictures in Google Classroom. And then get with a partner and discuss how would you go about creating these. What would you do to create these 2 objects? Have fun doing it, and thanks for watching.